Welcome everyone. I'm sure we have a lot of Wheaties watching right now, just mostly just for Dalton. But Philly Insider Podcast, we're talking some Sixers-Celtics right now, and unfortunately had to go into enemy territory and bring Dalton on the pod. But Dalton, why don't you just introduce yourself, tell everyone a little bit about you and
Yeah.
why you're in my apartment right now.
All right. Well, so I also go to Wheaton College with Hunter. We're graduating this year. And I'm a big Boston Celtics fan. Grew up Celtics fan my whole life. So just love watching all their games and finally glad that the Celtics got it done against the Hawks. Took a little too long, I will say.
Shout
But
out Ice Tray.
yeah, got it done in six instead of four, which was my prediction. But ultimately, like it was pretty inevitable that they'll play the Sixers in the second round. And being good friends with Hunter, just figured that might as well with instead of the trash talking around campus, that will bring it to the pod and maybe have a little more banter this way for you guys. So yeah,
Professional banter too. Yeah, for
professional
sure.
banter. Yeah.
So just want to shout out Jack and Thomas as well. But yeah, I mean Dalton, the head of the Semi Ojale fan club
Yeah.
too.
There, I have his jersey.
Yep, yep.
It's an amazing jersey. And Semi Ojeleye, if you're watching, shout out you. You're a stud. He's an
Yeah.
absolute stud.
Yeah, I know
Yeah.
the Cart Girl has his jersey too. So
Oh
yeah.
yeah. All right, all right.
So
So we're getting started with some inside jokes and a little trash talk early. But that's what the Sixers are gonna need if they're gonna beat the Celtics and have any chance.
I kind of think the opposite with Al Horford specifically, though.
Okay.
I don't want to trash talk him.
Yeah.
We've had too many bad experiences in that regard. And I can't give his sister any ammo on
Yeah.
Twitter. I think it's worse that his sister is on Twitter than it
I
is seeing him do what he
I
does.
don't know if his sister needs ammo. I think she just is
Yeah,
ready at all times to throw stuff out there. So I
that's
don't know
true.
if she'll need any ammo, but Al Horford will definitely be playing off of the city of brotherly love. His time there was uh, not good for either side. But then when he went to OKC, he kind of figured it all out by not playing much, and now back in Boston,
Of course.
dominating at I think he's 150 now. He's pretty old,
That's his age, yeah.
and his age is starting to show. So that brings up a lot of worries, especially when defending the future MVP. Definitely going to be the MVP, Joel Embiid.
Sure.
So, but if Philly starts trash talking, I think Al Horford might revert to his Florida days and just bring out that young spirit again.
I hope not. But let's talk about the series a little bit. I want to ask you first off how you're feeling about the series going into this. I'll go first, just talking about my feelings.
Mhm.
I was pretty hopeful, especially when Ice Tray hit that shot. I was like, this might be the year. Things are starting to turn our way, even with the Embiid LCL sprain. And then more updates come out, less updates come out. Neither was good. When we didn't get updates, it wasn't good, and then when we got updates, it wasn't good.
Yeah.
But now I'm kind of at like I'm pretty hopeless right now. I'm not gonna lie. 2 days ago, I was talking to my friend on the pod. We were both feeling pretty good going into the series. That we had a real shot to win it, at least in seven. I still picked Boston.
I did see that. I saw
I,
you pick Boston in
I picked
seven.
Boston
Yeah.
in seven, but I wanted to say the Sixers. I did feel the Sixers had a shot to win it.
Yeah.
Now it's nothing against B-ball Paul. It's the fact that Montrezl freaking Harrell might get on the floor. If he does, I'd
Yeah.
rather just run PJ at the five.
Yeah.
But anyway, point being, I don't feel great about the series. I think whoever wins this series is going to the finals. I'll say
Mhm.
that, especially with Jimmy Butler injury today.
Yeah,
What are
that
your thoughts?
that Jimmy Butler injury did change a lot. I was watching that game earlier
Hmm.
and seeing the Heat and Butler playing really well against a solid and physical and well defended defensive Knicks team. I was like, all right, the Heat could make it to the finals as an eight seed, but with this rolled ankle, I don't really know like any details right now, but it's definitely not good
Yeah,
for playing after a day's rest each in between each
yeah.
game,
Hmm.
which is another issue with the scheduling of the playoffs, which is hard.
Oh my gosh.
Um, but I feel like pretty good, I would say, especially because of Embiid's status as of now for the Celtics. But the only issue that I have is just the way that they've been closing games over the past like series with the Hawks. Just very complacent and nonchalant as they bring the ball up with whether it's a 10-point lead or just a single digit lead. They're really just trying to, wane the clock down and wean it down and then just not do anything with it and get sloppy with passes. So a lot of how they handled the Hawks series, it seemed like, oh, they thought that they had it in the bag, so they just took it like
Yeah.
went through the
Hmm.
motions. And instead of getting it done in four, they did it in six. So that's my concern, and also the lack of rest that they'll have, and just all the energy that they exerted throughout the series. just to win in six. Like
Yeah.
I'm a little nervous for that. But that being said, since it's such a young team and they played 2 7-game series last year, and
Yeah.
then went to the finals and then like played 6 games, but ultimately didn't win. That I feel a little bit better about their durability compared to the Sixers, who are a little bit older. Especially
Yeah.
their big men are a little older too.
Yeah. How do you feel about Missoula this year? What do you think of the job he's done?
I think he's done a really good job, especially in the third quarter. Celtics struggled a lot last year in
Hmm.
the third quarter, and they had some like moments where they were like, "Oh, this is an incredible third quarter team." They came out strong,
Yeah.
and specifically against the Sixers this year in the 4 games they played, they won the third quarter in each of those games, which I think is going to be huge. They would close out the half really strong, and then come out in the third quarter with a lot more momentum. I think that just halftime rest and adjustments that are made were huge. I like Missoula a lot. I think he puts a lot of trust in some more rotational guys,
Mm.
like a Hauser, Grant Williams, and then Malcolm Brogdon, the sixth man of the year. He has been incredible this whole year. But
Yeah, the faux rookie of the year, but he
yeah,
he was he was rookie of the year that year, but
yeah,
deservedly so for the six man.
yeah. So I think that Missoula has put a lot of trust in those guys, and playing them, and I think he has a lot. He's command of the locker room. I think we
Mm.
saw that with the Hawks series by not playing Grant Williams really at all. And he came out and said that it was very much matchup dependent, which it was.
Yeah.
I think Grant Williams will be a big force in this series,
Yeah.
especially guarding
Hmm.
Embiid. I mean, we saw in all the games whenever Grant Williams is guarding Embiid, he loves to just bump him immediately. As Embiid crosses half court, like
Yeah.
Grant Williams will put his chest into him and push him out. And that's what Missoula's game plan is, and that's what Grant Williams said too. He wants to push Embiid outside of the scoring area, whether him catching the ball with his back turned to the basket, like 15, 20 feet away. That's the main defensive goal right there. But
Hmm.
that's more so when he'll come in for Al Horford after Al Horford starts, obviously. So
Yeah.
I don't know. We'll see what the defensive matchups will be.
Yeah.
That's going to
Right.
be the main key, I think, is figuring out how to defend Embiid. And the main question for this whole series is Embiid going to be healthy? And if he doesn't play game one, and it's at home in Boston, it's gonna be really hard for the Sixers to steal game one.
Yeah.
Um, and
Hmm.
if they and then if they force Embiid back for game two, knowing how bad they need him, if he's not ready,
Right.
and then they push him and he like aggravates it again,
Yeah.
then that's down 2-0 potentially headed back to Philly.
Hmm.
So I think like we can get into predictions later, but I
Right.
think the health of Embiid is really really makes my prediction a little harder.
Yeah, it's
Yeah,
vital for the series. I mean, if
yeah,
he isn't out there 100%, it's going to be tough. If he's like 80 or 90%, I feel good about our chances. Like I think we have a shot. But if he's like 60% out there in game two, that's just
yeah,
not going to fly. I mean, you need him to be like he was in game four against Boston of the regular season,
yeah.
which also Jalen Brown wasn't playing in, so that's a whole other factor we'll have
Yeah,
to get
and
into.
no
But
Rob Williams too, and Rob
yeah,
Williams has only
exactly.
played one
So
game against the Sixers this year, so that's
yeah,
another
and he
wrench
kind
thrown
of
in
brings
there.
a
Yeah,
defensive element that will help against Embiid. And speaking on that too, the two big man lineups is that going to happen at all in this
I
series?
hope
Yeah,
not. I don't want to see Rob Williams and Smart out on the court at the same time.
sure.
That has never worked out well. Their offensive efficiency has been terrible.
Yeah.
So that's like something I don't want to see. But I will say if you have Horford or Grant Williams on Embiid, I would like to see Rob Williams come in for Smart, and then maybe have White bring up the ball, and then Brown and Tatum,
Okay.
and then throwing Rob Williams onto PJ Tucker.
Mm,
Because I think PJ Tucker is old, he can't really move that well. And then if you have Embiid when he's like backing Horford or Grant Williams down, you have Rob Williams help off Tucker and just leave him in the corner because Tucker is not going to really be hitting that. I don't think this series he could,
we'll see.
he
We'll
could,
see.
but I also think
Playoff
with
Beach.
uh with Rob Williams being able to close out too if they throw it around or
Mhm.
rotate well. Celtics have rotated well this whole season,
Yeah. Hmm.
and I think there's a really good defensive minded team.
Yeah. Hmm.
So that matchup would be good, like Rob Williams on PJ Tucker.
Hmm.
But yeah,
Yeah, yeah.
yeah,
Peach is going to be interesting. He didn't really hit many threes last series. He had the first game where he hit two, and we were feeling great, and he was doing everything else that he does, obviously, and just off the court stuff he does too is huge
yeah,
for this team. But then the next three games he goes 0 4. I think he hit one in game four. But
yeah.
he's got like a nerve thing in his hand. I think it's his guide hand. I forget if it's his guide hand or a shooting hand, but whatever it is, like sometimes just hands just dead,
Mhm.
which is not ideal for
No.
trying to shoot the basketball. I think it's a shooting hand.
Mhm.
So I mean he's out there and you see like if he doesn't have a wide open shot, he's just gonna hesitate and not
Yeah.
put it up. Whereas like if if Rob Williams is out there on him, coming to the corner, like he doesn't really have to get over there all the way over there. Like he just has to get enough of a contest to force him to pass out of it. And
Or
then just real quick, like
yeah,
the number of times where PJ will fake it and then he'll hesitate and then like dribble handoff. The number of turnovers we had off that this year is like, well, PJ would have just pulled the trigger and if he could make that shot a little bit more, it'd be huge. Well, PJ, I still love him. I mean, he's still vital to this team, but that is a concern for you
yeah,
guys.
his scoring is definitely not going to be the thing
No,
to win the series for you guys.
it's not
And
going to flip the series
yeah,
either way.
and maybe
Yeah,
Luke Cornett will guard instead of just
yeah.
jumping up right in
You think
front
he'll
of the.
play?
I don't think he'll play
Yeah,
much. I think he'll play like very rarely.
I forgot. Yeah, he's the
Yeah,
guy who does
I
that.
think
Yeah.
Blake Griffin will get minutes over Luke Cornett. I could see. I saw
Mhm.
that a couple times in the regular season. Blake Griffin was matched up with Embiid, just a little
Sure.
more physicality and a little more veteran status.
Hmm.
So I think the main defenders that you'll see Missoula throw at Embiid will obviously be Grant Williams and Al Horford as the primary ones. I don't know if Rob Williams will get a ton. I think he'll be the one maybe coming to double if needed. We saw the Nets double Embiid every time he even like got near the ball, which
Yeah.
was horrible.
Yeah.
It worked out terribly for them.
Yeah.
They got swept.
Right. Like
So
he didn't put up 30, but he
yeah,
got the pass to the assist most of the time.
exactly. And the
So
Nets just rotated really poorly too.
yeah,
So it
yeah.
just
Hmm.
everything was just bad about that game plan that they had. But then I think you could see Smart be an irritant and just kind of be like thrown at him just to like irritate and get under
Yeah, yeah.
Embiid's skin. And I think Blake Griffin might come in like very rarely just because the
Hmm.
team's healthy now. Like with times when Rob Williams wasn't playing and
Yeah.
Grant Williams
Hmm.
was kind of guarding other guys, you would see Blake come in.
Hmm.
But I will say like Embiid, he's gonna get his points. A few stats is like in wins, he's had 33.7 points per game, but in losses, he's still averaging 30 points a game at
Yeah,
31.7.
yeah,
So he'll get his no matter what. And I think that's what these Nets did a poor job of as they were trying to limit Embiid,
yeah.
but
Hmm.
then they got beat by other guys.
See, yeah,
And Maxey had a really good
he
series, I
did.
thought.
Yeah. Hmm.
But I think that the Celtics are going to understand that. Embiid's going to get his. I mean, he put up like 37 a game against the Celtics this regular season.
Right. Yeah.
And I think that their goal is to win the minutes that Embiid's off the floor,
Yeah.
and then
That's
obviously make the other guys beat
right.
them. And
Right.
with the guards that the Sixers have, but the defenders that the Celtics have at the guard position, I think that makes it really tough for the Sixers.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Where the Celtics are going to win the series is on the bench because
Mhm.
honestly, I think if Embiid's somewhat good to go. Like when the starters are on the floor, I mean, I might even give the Sixers a slight edge depending on how they play it, but that's just me. As far as the bench goes, though, Sixers have the best depth they've had in years past, but it still doesn't match up to the Celtics. Because, I mean, talking about Sam Hauser real quick, I mean, I think him and Jalen McDaniels might match up a little bit on each other, which I think could be an interesting matchup. They're
Yeah.
both similar size, similar-ish skill sets. I mean, McDaniels is a little bit different. He cuts a little bit more, and I haven't watched Hauser enough to really. You can talk a little bit about him, but like McDaniels is a good defender. We got him in the Thibault trade, and I
Mhm.
mean, I think he's been. I mean, I'm not going to say he's an Matisse Thibault level defender, but like he's around that kind of
Yeah.
that kind of threshold. And then he's also, I mean, he can hit the three as well, and he can cut, like I said too. So
Yeah.
I'll be interested to kind of see how that plays out with those two. But then, I mean, talking about the rest of the bench, I mean, talk about Derek White used to be one of the bench guys. Now he's starting
I
pretty well,
know.
and he's really, really
He's
good.
been very, very good this
Yeah,
whole
right,
season.
right.
And I think especially against the Sixers, he's been playing well. I think in the final game of this of the season series, he had 26, or
Hmm.
maybe the third game of the season series, he had 26. But he's like sneaky physical because
Yeah.
he doesn't
Mhm.
look like he's gonna charge at you. He looks like he'll recede kind of like his hairline.
Yeah.
But just
Oh my
a
gosh.
jab at my guy Derek White.
Sure. Yeah.
Yeah, love him to death. But I think Maxey, that matchup, Derek White and Maxey is going to be another key one
Yeah.
for the starters
Oh
at
my
least.
gosh.
Just because Maxey is not like well known as a defender, just like
Hmm.
Britt Covey's not a well known returner. Um,
I knew
so
I knew something was
yeah,
going to come like that.
yeah. So it might be it's the same way like if Britt Covey's not healthy for a game. You're not too mad. Just like if Joel Embiid's not healthy for a game, you got B-ball Paul. So like that's a good substitute as well.
Did
Um,
you know his nickname was B-Ball Paul
I
before?
did, I
Okay,
did, I
okay.
did know his
I
nickname
didn't
was
know if you
B-ball
got
Paul.
fed that answer from
No,
someone else
I
too.
was
Man,
well,
I got mine out right
yeah.
off the bat. You came in firing midway through. You,
I do love B-ball Paul because he rebounds the ball like
oh, he's a menace.
so well.
He's a menace. Yeah.
Which is another key for the Celtics is they got to rebound the ball and limit turnovers. They
Yeah.
got out rebounded by the Hawks by a lot. And that was not good at all. I mean,
Hmm.
obviously, like I think that had a huge impact on the series stretching out the way it did. But back to the Maxey and White conversation
Yeah.
with White being able to be a little more physical, and what he loves is just drive to his left side, kind of bump into somebody, and then
Mm,
have a little like create enough space to have like a 10-foot jump shot,
yeah.
and he makes that pretty much every time. So that's a big matchup, and the Hauser McDaniels one would be pretty funny to see them those guys go at it. Hauser, I mean, a lot of teams like to Hauser hunt and get that one-on-one
Right.
matchup,
You
and
guys have been doing a good
yeah,
job of switching on that,
and
and he's been doing a good job on when he's needed to come up. It
yeah,
seems like so.
and yeah, if they hunt him, like he's the games I've watched and seen it, and I'm like seeing it happen. I'm like, oh no, this is not going to be good. He's long, and that's something that like
Yeah.
the Celtics have a lot of is long
Hmm.
physical guys, and
So
Hauser is able to close out super well. I mean, you got
yeah.
Brogdon on the wing, who's super long and just a great defender, who was a
Yeah.
starter everywhere else he was, and now is coming off the bench for the Celtics,
Yeah.
and healthy too. He hasn't been super healthy in his career, so it's really cool to see him and what he can do coming off the bench in a role that I think he should have been in his entire career.
Yeah.
He's a great player and should be a starting point guard anywhere, but I think comes off the bench better. He's a good six
Mm,
man,
mhm.
just because it limits as an injury prone guy, like it limits the
Right.
chances for him
Yeah.
getting injured.
Exactly.
But yeah,
Yeah. Yeah. And as far as Hauser McDaniels goes, I mean, both long guys. I'm really interested to see who wins that matchup.
mhm,
Obviously, that's not going to flip the series one way or
yeah,
another, but it's like in those tight games late, like if one of them's playing before the starters come back in, like those couple possessions could be the difference.
mhm,
And then yeah, as far as Maxi and White goes, I mean, Maxi I think went 7 of 22 from the field in the regular season. I think White went 6 of 10 versus Maxi when he was shooting the ball. Um, and yeah, Maxi's definitely gotten better defensively, I would say. Like he plays with a lot more heart. Not that he wasn't before, but it just seems like he believes a little bit more in himself. But at the same time, he will we like all I think almost the whole Sixers fan base will agree, at least the intelligent ones will say that Maxi's probably going to get targeted on the defensive
mhm,
end. I mean, that's going to be a matchup that we're a little bit worried about for sure. But the place he can make up for it is obviously offensively. If he can carry over the confidence he built from last series and just like mature as a player,
yeah,
that would be huge. Because I mean, even though history or track record isn't really on his side with the Celtics,
mhm,
that's the big thing I think we're kind of holding on to hope for is Maxi just coming up and like showing he's that guy,
yeah,
which he has at times. It's just it really happens in spurts. Like he'll have like a stretch in the third quarter where like 4 or 5 possessions in a row, he's just hitting
mhm,
everything. But like I want to see him throughout the game, and also he's just not there as a playmaker yet too, which is
yeah,
another issue. Like I think when you see Harden go around a lot on that pick and roll, like he takes a really good angle, and Maxi, it just kind of seems like he goes a little too wide around it. One of the
mhm,
podcasts I was listening to says that. Um, that's a little bit of a concern of mine too, is how Maxi's going to navigate that. Because I mean, we'll talk about Harden in a little bit, but that's another concern.
yeah,
But what was the other thing I wanted to get to? I forget. But oh yeah, the bench. Georges Niang should not be on the floor for the Sixers at all this entire series. Like he's gonna play. I think Doc will put him out there, but if they can be smart and like keep him on the bench and just play Toby a little bit more each game, Toby's been pretty good so
yeah.
far. We'll see how he plays, but I mean, I'd rather, regardless of how Toby plays, I'd rather have him out there than Yang. I mean,
Oh, for sure.
the only reason you have Yang out there is to help somewhat space the floor, but
Mhm.
I mean, the switches Boston's is going to get on him on the offensive end
Yeah.
is giving me nightmares right
The
now.
the one like fear I have, especially with Toby, I love Tobias Harris. I think he's great.
Yeah, yeah, it should be
But
on a max contract,
he
but
should be on it. Yeah,
he's a great player
he
though.
has just pretty much dominated
Yeah,
Tatum in
hmm
their matchup. He's defended
yeah, I saw
Tatum
that.
really
Hmm
well. I thought we would see like you guys signed PJ Tucker to defend Tatum. Like
I
that's
know.
the reason you signed him. And now Tobias Harris is just, pulling out all these defensive stops.
Right.
And Tatum's only averaging like 21 points per game over the series on really poor shooting, like 28% from three
Yeah.
and maybe like
hmm
40% from the field. So Tobias Harris has done a really good job of winning that battle. Even though it hasn't resulted in like regular season wins.
hmm
That's like a common theme, like where, all right, if Tatum's getting stopped, who's going to step up? And a lot of that has been Jaylen Brown.
Yeah.
He plays
hmm
really well against the Sixers because that next defender who's going to be defending Brown isn't obviously as good or as long and
Right. Yeah.
as strong as Tobias Harris or like a
hmm
PJ Tucker. So
Yeah.
you'll probably see lot of like maybe like James Harden, like
It's a
maybe guarding
possibility.
Brown,
It's a
which wouldn't be
possibility.
good.
Yeah.
Harden does have some pretty good active hands when he
Yeah.
just like flips at it
Right.
sometimes.
Right.
But on the flip side, like if Jaylen Brown is guarding Harden, or it's like Marcus Smart will probably be the primary defender on Harden.
Yeah.
That's going to be the a harder matchup for James Harden in that situation.
Yeah.
But the Tatum thing really like scares me a little bit. I think he has matured a lot over the season. Even like we saw at the start, but then also like throughout the season, like he's become a lot more physical on drives. a lot more absorbent of contact when he goes up,
Mm,
and he can create stuff. And when he's not shooting super well, he's able to get to the hoop still,
yeah.
or pass it
Mhm.
off. So I think in clutch time, like obviously you want the ball in Tatum's hands
Yeah.
at all
Mhm.
times, or Brown. But I think Tatum, it's gonna be a huge series for him, and Maxey, I think, is like, all right, like
Yeah. Mhm.
you get the team like really over the hump. The Celtics obviously have gotten over the hump, but
Mhm.
Maxey, it's time to see, is he actually the third guy,
Yeah.
or is it, and he's still super
And can he be
young.
the second guy in
Yeah.
the
And
future
can he
too?
be the second guy? Like he's because of James Harden's name,
Yeah. Mhm.
it's like, oh, Harden. But then Maxey, like, can he be that third guy? I know he's still super young, but it's kind of important for the Sixers to find out, can we win with Maxey, or do we have to find something else?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Definitely. And I had something I wanted to ask you on. Oh yeah, so Tatum and Toby, obviously that's going to be a key matchup. The thing is, the thing that really gets me in the series is that Tatum doesn't need to get his, and the Celtics can still win.
Mhm.
I would say fairly easily. We'll see how that pans out. I mean, the place where the Sixers I think can make up for that is offensive boards. B-ball Paul out there a lot, obviously. PJ Tucker, I mean, there'll be like tree trunks over him,
Yeah.
and he'll still find a way to come down with it or tap
Yeah.
it back out, which is
Somehow.
crazy. I don't even think it shows up in the box score how many times he like affects
Mhm.
other team trying to get a rebound, and then like I said, he just hits it back out. So
Yeah.
that's where I think we can kind of make it up. But yeah, like you said with Jalen Brown, that's going to be tough. I think you're going to see D'Anthony Melton play a lot at the end of
Okay.
games. Like he was obviously the one who was on Tatum when he hit the shot before the Embiid buzzer beater
Yeah.
didn't go. And I would have liked to see Jalen McDaniels on him just because of the length. But I understand why Melton's on him as well because Melton's been really good in all
Mhm.
aspects for us this year, especially defensively. So I think you're going to see him play at the end of games. I would maybe keep an eye out for like McDaniels maybe playing in that unit at the end of the games. I don't think that's going to happen, but it's a possibility. Like I wouldn't rule it out. So those are kind of the two guys I'd say with Jalen Brown getting his, maybe one of them can kind of keep him in check. We'll
Yeah.
see. But yeah, I mean that, and then like if they can make up for it in the offensive boards and then get a lot of second chance points, which they did last series, I think that's where they can hang with the Celtics. And
Mhm.
last year we saw, I mean, they played a half of basketball with DeAndre Jordan and B-Ball Paul, who B-Ball Paul didn't even play like the 2 months leading into the playoffs, and I think they were up by one against the Heat in Game One of that series in Miami. So I mean, and then they played a terrible half of
Yeah.
basketball. Just Miami played worse. So and then Miami ended up winning by 20. But if they can have something like that where they catch a little bit of luck, like they've got to have stuff like the Kawhi bounce go their way this year. That's
Mhm.
just what's going to have to happen. And it's unfortunate because I really feel like this is the Sixers' best shot. And I don't think it's I don't think it's likely they make the championship. But I mean, we haven't had the depth like we've had this year. Melton, we haven't had a six man like him in years past. Embiid's, I mean, we talk about years past when we thought we had best shots with Embiid. I mean, he's gotten even better. So we'll
Yes.
see what
Oh,
he's
he's
at.
so impressive.
If Maxey can get over the hump, and then if James can just like not be dumb sometimes, like I love James, but
Yeah.
it's just he gets by guys, and then like he still has the explosiveness in that first step to get past guys, and then he's just not finishing at the rim because he's older. Like
Yeah.
he's just not the same guy he used to be. Who's going to go up and I know he didn't posterize a ton of guys, but every once in a while you'd see him put a jam on someone.
Mhm.
Like it is not the same guy anymore. So I need to see him. I think a lot of the time last year in the playoffs, he just did such a good job with that of just kicking out and generating. And obviously, like you said, the Celtics can rotate pretty well. So
Yeah.
that'll be another key factor. I mean, I know my one friend was talking about the triple switches and stuff. You
Mhm.
guys, I'm not sure will that if you have anything on that, but
Yeah, but
yeah,
I think a lot in the Nets series and like stuff you would see at halftime with like Jalen Rose talking, and those guys, they were saying like make Harden drive every
yeah,
time
hmm
because he's a little slower. He can still get to the rim, just
yeah,
because he's always been able to get to the rim his whole
yeah. It's
career.
a timing thing sometimes
Yeah,
too.
and but he's just not been able to finish. He's
Hmm
been horrendous finishing around the rim so far these playoffs and some of this regular season. So I think if they can limit those step backs, but luckily, like the guards are really quick. Like you'll see Brogdon Smart obviously thrown at him, and maybe some Jalen Brown just to
Yeah,
close out
hmm
hard as well. And if like he does do his signature step back move, but the Harden thing
doesn't get
is
ejected for it.
yeah, the Harden thing is a key piece too. Just
Yeah,
because like. And that's age too.
yeah,
You're seeing age with Al Horford, you're seeing age with PJ Tucker, and now with Harden as well. Like those three guys, they're not going to be as explosive as they were like 2 years ago. And I do think though that we'll see like on a really random tangent. I think we'll see one of the stars probably put up like 50. I think there'll be a
yeah.
50-point game. We saw it
hmm
from Embiid in the final regular season game
Right.
against the
Yeah.
Celtics. He had 52, which was
Crazy.
crazy. And then
Yeah.
yeah. So if the Sixers are gonna like, and that only got them a 2-point win. no, the Sixers are gonna like win a
Yeah, we
game.
tried to blow that game at the end.
Yeah. So it's gonna be cool to see. I think there will definitely be a really high scoring game from one of the stars, whether it's from one of the Jays, or from a Maxey Harden or an Embiid.
Mhm.
So I think that where when it comes down to it, like who's going to be the third option?
Mhm.
Who's going to be consistent enough to be that third option? Because every like all those guys are going to get theirs. Embiid's going to get
Sure.
his.
Yeah.
Harden played well against the Celtics during the regular season. He'll
Mhm.
get his. Maxey needs to step up. And then for the
Yeah.
Celtics, it's going to be either Derek White, Brogdon. Grant Williams could even be the guy. We saw that last year
Yeah.
against the Bucks in the final
It's
game.
true.
And so it's going to be really interesting to see like what that's going to turn into. But yeah,
Mhm.
yeah,
No, no, for sure. And I think it all goes back to like this might not decide the series depending on Joel Embiid's health. That really is the biggest thing. But like the next biggest thing I think we've talked about is Maxey and Derek White. Like
Mhm.
whoever really wins that matchup, even if Tyrese Maxey doesn't play well defensively, if he's like on another level offensively, that would be huge. I mean, those two guys I think are going to be going at it a lot of the
Yeah.
time, and yeah, that really to me is just such a key factor in the series. And I want to ask you too. You talked about how they're probably going to defend Embiid. Like as far as B-ball Paul goes, a little bit more of like a normal, I guess, rotation or like defensive set. Like what's that going to look like, and what opportunities do you think the Sixers will have to exploit the Celtics in those
Yeah,
situations, if
I
any?
I think because Bilal Paul is a bigger guy, I think that will just attract like like single defender,
Mhm.
and then it kind of could leave Embiid to kind of do whatever he wants if they're on the court at the same time. If
Yeah,
Embiid and Bilal Paul are,
they probably won't be.
yeah,
Hopefully next year though.
yeah.
That's what I'm hoping for.
But I think with Bilal Paul, like this, there can be a lot more off-ball movement, and maybe let him.
Hmm.
I don't know much about his full range of skills and skill set.
Except that he can a little behind the
Yeah.
legs, you know.
But I think that it could exploit some Celtics just like um, on an island. If it's Horford
Mm,
guarding him, that could be big because like Buell Paul is stronger and like is younger and like can
yeah,
get up.
yeah, he
And
can move.
especially if Grant Williams is guarding him, who's a shorter, big guy.
Right.
He could just shoot over him too.
Mhm.
So I don't know how much it'll exploit. I don't think like Buell Paul's gonna have a 30-point game or anything.
Yeah,
But
that'd be wild.
I do think that if shots go up and then whoever is boxing out Buell Paul, he can get those offensive rebounds and create second
Yeah,
possessions. So like he won't exploit the Celtics with the ball. I think he'll exploit
yeah,
it on the glass, which is something the Celtics struggle to do against the Hawks. So I think Buell Paul would most likely only exploit like on the glass,
yeah,
and defensively as well. But
yeah.
yeah.
And with the offensive movement, like you said, I mean, just because you're not going ISO every time, the Sixers will definitely be moving a lot more.
Mhm.
And I mean, they have played well without Joel Embiid this year. Obviously, they didn't play the Celtics all like 15 times they played without him, but and that's a completely different story,
Yeah.
obviously. But it is encouraging that they have like looked like a team without him, and like I think they beat the Heat by 20 with B-ball Paul as a starter. So there is like some sort of hope there. And yeah, as far as B-ball Paul goes, I mean, I really think he's a four down the road. I don't think he's a five, but the fact that he's just doing this and it's not really like perfectly catered to his skill set, but I mean, he's doing a really good job of it. So,
Yeah.
the biggest thing with him, I think, is he gonna like, know when to go back up, like for a putback, or when to kick it back out? Because he got yelled at by Doc at that last game, and that's something that's happened a few times. So, yeah, just decisiveness for him, and understanding the right situations. That's going to be huge for B-ball Paul. So,
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah. I think definitely that'll be huge. And then, I've just been a fan of like watching the Sixers like play really well this year without Embiid, but also like
Mhm.
seeing him just be a absolute stud and MVP. So it stinks that it's like now Embiid's hurt just because
Yeah,
like
you want to play him at
yeah,
the best,
you want to
right?
play him at the best and like you
Yeah.
said like you feel like it's the Sixers best year and now like this
Yeah.
pops up. And with the Celtics, like I thought last year was like their best year, but then they got better in the
Right,
offseason.
right. Yeah.
So I've been super happy with seeing how they've sort of meshed and had good team chemistry.
Mhm.
But with the Sixers, it's like, oh man, you guys had such, like could have an easy route where it's like you got a tired Celtics coming off a 6 game like
Mhm.
stressful series, a rusted,
Right,
Sixers
exactly.
team,
Yeah.
and
The
then
Bucks
Bucks are
lose.
out.
Yeah.
The Heat look really good, but now with Jimmy
Jimmy
Butler's
Butler.
ankle,
Oh,
and then the Knicks who are the Knicks?
yeah.
They're not gonna make
Brunson's
it. Yeah,
good, but like,
yeah, they're not
yeah,
gonna do anything.
yeah,
And then on the West, you have the Suns who lost game one.
yeah. Got
Nuggets,
destroyed by the
yeah,
Nuggets.
and the Nuggets are kind of scary right
Yeah,
now. We
yeah.
can
They
get
are.
into West Coast stuff if we want later.
Yeah.
And now the Warriors are currently playing a game seven right now
Right. Yeah.
against the Kings. I don't know the score right now. Last I checked, I think the Kings were up right around halftime.
Mm.
And then the Lakers. knock off the Grizzlies, who
Yeah.
the Grizzlies dynasty, I might add. The
Mhm.
dynasty of the Grizzlies is over again,
Yeah.
even though
Yeah.
they don't really have a dynasty at all.
I forgot about that. Yeah.
Yeah, but that the West is kind of a crapshoot right now,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
just
It's
really,
anyone's game.
yeah, because the Suns are so like young, not young, but like young to each other,
Yep.
and it's
Mhm.
such a new like team,
Yeah. They haven't played much
and
together.
their third like their fourth option is Josh Okogie. They don't even have they don't have bench guys.
Their
Like,
bench is not
it's
anything
terrible. If
close.
we're gonna have Josh Okogie taking threes to win games, and like
Yeah.
good luck winning a championship.
Yeah.
But you also have
Right.
Kevin Durant and
Yeah.
Devin Booker. So what do I know?
Right.
But the Nuggets with a healthy Jamal Murray is really cool. To see him be
Yeah.
back out there and sort of bubble-esque.
He's been
But
awesome.
the Sixers, I think the winner of the finals could put like is going to be coming out of the series.
I agree. I agree.
If everyone's healthy.
Hmm.
When it comes down to it. Because I think they're the most well-rounded teams. And
Yeah.
have a lot of
Hmm.
depth, but a lot of scoring options too. The Celtics have a lot of scoring options with Brogdon putting up a ton of points this year, playing well and scoring when needed. Derek White doing the same thing. Grant Williams can score in bunches. Sam
Yeah.
Hauser can score in bunches.
Yeah.
Even Peyton Pritchard can come off the bench and hit like three straight threes, and
Yeah.
everyone goes
Yeah.
crazy in Boston. But
I want to see him and Mac McClung in garbage time.
that would be
It's
amazing.
serious.
That would be amazing in the Garden, the TD Garden. They're playing each other. But no, I think also home court is huge. I think the
Yeah.
only way the
Hmm.
Sixers win the series is by stealing one of the first two games.
Absolutely.
They
Yeah.
have to then protect home court, obviously. But I think they have to win either game one, and then I think they would lose game two.
Yeah.
And then they would probably need to win 3-4, and then game six.
Yeah. I agree. That's
I
the way the
don't
Sixers win the
yeah,
series.
I don't
Absolutely.
think they win more than one game on the road. So obviously it's gonna be huge in these first two games of like, all right, we gotta figure out where Embiid's at because you can't be down 2-0 heading home and then
Yeah.
having to
Hmm.
win four of the next,
Yeah. Yeah.
four games.
Yeah. Whatever it is.
So
Yeah. Five.
yeah. So that's gonna be really so. And I think even if Embiid's healthy, a lot of what the Celtics have done with Embiid is, even and when he comes back to play, like, is make everything difficult.
Yeah.
You can live with his turnaround fadeaways or his like pull up jump shots. Like
Sure.
you can live with that. Like he's gonna do that. And like if he makes it, that's because he's an MVP.
Yeah.
But
Hmm.
what you can't live with is him getting really easy baskets. And all the
Hmm.
other guys getting really easy looks at the rim.
Yeah.
So the Celtics
Hmm.
just need to make everything difficult and make his life miserable. And I think that the way they do that is not only obviously forcing him into difficult shots, but on the offensive, his defensive end. So when the Celtics have the ball, stretching him out. So
Hmm.
having like Horford, whoever he's guarding, stretch fives out on the perimeter. So then when you drive, he has to either cash in, or
Yeah.
you just have someone running around and just tiring him out.
Right.
You have to just take him beat out in the first three quarters and make him exhausted for the fourth.
Hmm.
Even though as an exhausted Embiid, he can still put up points
Yeah. Right.
and shoot the ball really well at a high percentage. But that's also another thing too is this, if you can take him out within the first like 2 3 quarters,
Hmm.
and make him exhausted by either running around but forcing fadeaways and a
Yeah.
lot of pull up jump shots,
Hmm.
and having to work for backing somebody down too.
Yeah. Hmm.
And I think you can only send a double when he puts the ball on the ground.
Hmm.
The Nets sent it as soon as he touched it,
Yeah.
which he can see over everybody.
Yeah. Right. Right.
So it's not going to do much. For the Celtics being a little taller
Hmm.
and longer, I
Sure.
think that especially if you have Rob Williams coming to help, as soon as he puts the ball down, he might get a little discombobulated,
Sure.
and you'll
Yeah.
have to kind of obviously each possession I think is going to look completely different for the defensive
Hmm.
plan for Embiid and for the Sixers. I think there'll be adjustments made every single time the ball's coming down the court. But that's just a few of my thoughts
Sure.
there.
Sure. And I think you saw in the Nets series, unfortunately, that when it got a little bit physical and he got bumped a little bit, and I mean, Claxton didn't really even posterize him the first time. I mean, Embiid unfortunately fell right in front of him. Claxton dunked it and stepped over him, and Embiid did something else that well, he was not happy about it,
Yeah.
and somehow he didn't get ejected. Harden did later, and then later in the game he gets yammed on again by Claxton. I think that was before he had the LCL landing where he was near. I think it was near Cam Johnson, right behind the rim. Um, and that's another thing. Like teams are going to look at that, and obviously you talked a little bit about how Boston's going to play it, and even just little things like Grant Williams chest bumping him, like Embiid's got to keep his composure because I think we thought we got to this point where he was so mature and like had just grown up a lot as not just as a player, but like personality wise. I think since Doc Rivers, don't love Doc, but like I think since he's gotten here, that's been better. Um, yeah, that's a little bit of a concern of mine is Embiid's composure too in those situations, but. Um, Yeah, I got to ask you before we move on to another thing. What's it like just facing Doc Rivers, getting that chance to beat him in a playoff series?
Yeah, it's kind of nice. Obviously, Doc is the reason the Celtics have a
Yeah,
championship in 2008.
sure.
But it is, you know, seeing it kind of makes the Celtics seem a little bit better and like him less of as good of a coach. That the Celtics were kind of carried by that trio of Allen, Paul Pierce. You have Kendrick Perkins, Kevin
Yeah,
Garnett, and Rondo. And then as soon as Doc leaves to go somewhere else, he doesn't do much in the
he just
playoffs.
blows leads in
He
the
just blows lead in the playoffs. Just doesn't play people well. We saw
playoffs.
that with the Clippers and now with the Sixers too. It's just like I don't know like if he just lost an edge or if it was just the system back then,
Yeah.
or like the coaching style back in the late 2000s. So I think there's not many thoughts I have on it. I think we've played Doc enough times since he left that like there's no real kind of like energy towards it.
Yeah.
I
Mhm.
personally like I've liked Doc. Now I just think he's kind of just another head coach that doesn't mean
It's
much.
like Joe Girardi with the Yankees. Like
Yeah,
Joe
basically.
Girardi won the World Series with a stacked roster, and then with the Phillies, he was garbage. So
Yeah,
we got over
yeah.
the hump after
So
that. And
yeah,
speaking of the Phillies too, like if the Sixers just like you said, I think the winner of the series has a really good chance to win the championship. I think if the Celtics win the series, I mean, I would say they're definitely going to be in the finals, and they really could win the championship, which is why we have to beat you guys.
yeah,
But
yeah.
uh, the Sixers, like, if they could just get past that second round hump one year, like you saw the Phillies, they finally got over the 11-year playoff drought. Like, I
Mhm.
think the players felt it. They were
Yeah.
like, we got it. Like, at the years they didn't get over it, I think they were feeling the pressure of it. And then once they got through that pressure, it was like, we're playing with house money now. It's kind of like
Right.
with the Sixers, like, I don't want to say it's house money because the goal for us every year has been a championship.
Mhm.
Like, I think the process was still the right move regardless because, I mean, I don't know really what was the other option at that
Yeah.
point.
I think
Being the eight seed every
the
year.
goal being the championship is like obviously like true. Like
Yeah,
obviously you have
sure,
every goal to be a
sure.
championship. But with the Sixers, it's like, yeah, like when they get to the second round, they have these demons pop up.
Yeah.
So being able to get past that just opens up like
Oh,
and sets the bar higher where it's like, oh, we know we're supposed to be in the conference
hmm,
finals because we've
right,
been there.
right. Yeah,
And then that is what the Phillies. I mean, the Phillies are playing well right now. I think
yeah,
they'll be really solid. But unfortunately, like I mean, obviously the Phillies losing the World Series, Eagles in the Super Bowl. You have the Union in the MLS Cup.
yeah.
If the
Philadelphia Stars in the USFL
yeah,
championship.
if the Sixers make it all the way to the finals, if they lose there, that would make me look like pretty happy. But luckily the Flyers are trash, so you don't have to worry about the
Oh,
Flyers losing in the Stanley
the
Cup
lost
finals.
championship there was not getting Connor Bedard. Like
Yeah,
the lottery still, I think, is yet to happen. But
yeah, I think the Blackhawks might be getting the dart.
yeah,
So
of
we'll see.
course, the Flyers beat the Blackhawks in overtime in the
Yeah.
last game of the year.
So Philly sports fans have been through it. So sorry guys. I know it's tough right now. But at least you have some hope right now with the Sixers.
Yeah,
For now at least, and the
yeah,
Phillies too. I mean, that was a fun World Series run
yeah,
for
for
sure.
sure, for sure.
And watching the games and seeing like everyone go crazy, just like a really looked like a really
Right,
fun team.
right.
And I think that's what you get if you get over the hump. Is you obviously play a lot freer. There's so much more
Yeah,
momentum and confidence that comes with that. So you're having a lot more fun. I think
yeah,
we
yeah.
saw that with the
Hmm.
Celtics when they got to the finals. They were having fun with it too.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah.
And that's like with any team when you're playing for a championship, like you want to be serious, but when you're playing so tight and like, oh, I can't make a mistake or like I got to be so focused, you lose some of that free movement around the court,
Hmm.
which I think the Celtics have gained a lot of perspective on. And like you see
Yeah.
that when they play too, it's like a lot of free movement around the floor. I think the Sixers do that a lot when the ball isn't sticking in like Harden's hand or Embiid's hand. If the ball is moving around and everyone's kind of rotating and like cutting where they need to be,
Yeah.
it's a lot of fun. It's fun basketball to watch. I
Yeah.
mean, these
Hmm.
guys are so good. I mean, the NBA players are so good. They have
Yeah.
the
Yeah.
best. They have the best IQ of like almost any sport because they know where to
Sure.
be. They know the right moves to make. And it's just a matter of if they're going to whine and complain or not, which has been an issue with
Yeah.
Tatum
Yeah.
a lot this year too. Is he can
Hmm.
whine and complain.
Like to hear
Um,
that.
so yeah, we'll see. I mean, hopefully he doesn't like beg for fouls like he sometimes does when he drives and then just like does this and then jogs back on defense. If he can
Hmm.
just, keep his composure as well. Like composure is gonna be a huge thing in the series because guys are gonna throw haymakers.
It's gonna be chippy.
It's gonna be super chippy. I mean, Jalen Brown broke his face the third game they played the Sixers.
Forgot about that.
So he broke his face and he's still wearing that mask now.
Hmm.
So it's gonna be a chippy series and really physical and
Right.
whoever can keep their composure and make the shots come down like coming down the line, like obviously that's who's going to win the series. It's pretty obvious that
Sure.
way. But yeah, it's gonna and if both the Jays, put up more than 30 points, it's most likely that they're going to win. I
Yeah.
mean,
Yeah.
when Jason and Jalen have 30 plus points, they're 23-1. And they did that once again one time against the Sixers
And that
season
was the one.
already.
No, I'm just kidding. I wish it was.
And yeah, yeah, but it's gonna be an interesting series for sure. Yeah.
I'm excited for it. You got anything else before we get into predictions, or?
Let me see what I got. A lot of what we kind of just touch on everything with like rebounds, turnovers, third quarters. If the
Yeah,
Sixers need to come out swinging in that third quarter,
yeah,
they can't come out
yeah,
little
definitely.
stale and little slow.
Yeah,
But I don't really think I have anything else.
yeah. I mean, I think we talked about a lot in
Yeah.
this series. I'm trying to think if there's anything else I got. I think I touched on all our bench guys, touched on the coaches a little bit too. I mean, obviously a little bit issues there with both. I'll give
Mhm.
Doc credit before I trash him at the end of the series.
Okay.
He's been much better this year.
Yeah, for
I
sure.
think this is like obviously we have more depth, so the rotations are a lot better now.
Mhm.
When Embiid's on the court, Harden's been staggering. So it's like Harden playing with Melton, who's been a starter with us before. McDaniels is on the court. He's been a starter before with Charlotte, and I think he could start on some teams.
Yeah.
Yang, who's a bench player, and then B-Ball Paul, who's probably gonna have to start in this series and has started before. But like that's a pretty serviceable bench unit. I'm not sure how the rotations are going to match
Yeah.
up with Boston. We'll see how the Sixers play it. And then slowly they get Embiid back in. But usually that happens like end of the first quarter. You see guys trickle out.
Mhm.
Harden will go out. They'll play a little bit with like a McDaniels or a Melton with the starting lineup, and then they'll kind of filter the guys
Yeah.
back in, and then Harden and Embiid will be matched up for like the rest of the quarter.
And
So
that's the same with the Celtics too. Like some of their like subs that come in towards the end of the first quarter. It's a lot of
mhm.
like Rob Williams and Brogdon coming immediately.
Sure, yeah,
With probably like 4 minutes left in the first quarter.
yeah,
And then you'll see maybe Hauser come in. I think you'll see Grant Williams take Hauser's minutes
yeah.
in the first quarter. I think you'll see a lot more of Grant Williams, and maybe he'll come in instead of Rob for the first sub. But we'll see like how that all shakes out. I do have a question for you. Do you, as a Sixers fan, would you rather have Ish Smith right now as your starting point guard? Because Ish Smith, I went to a lot of Sixers games, and Ish every time I would go, he would probably have like 30 points. So Ish Smith plays really well whenever I watch. Would you rather have him right now instead of Tyrese Maxey?
Oh, not over Maxi.
Okay,
I can't say that. I do have my Ish Smith jerseys over my room somewhere right
okay,
now, or Shursey, I should say. I mean, he is like a 30 assist type of game type of guy. So, I love Ish Smith. Shout out the boy from the process. Could go through a whole list of process players. I didn't
yeah.
wasn't expecting that one either. Tip my cap to you, but yeah. Get into predictions here.
Yeah,
All
all
right,
right. I think,
go for it.
yeah. Do you want me to start or you want
You
to? Okay,
can
I'll go.
start
All
and then go
right.
MVP.
MVP obviously is gonna be Embiid. I'll say that first of all.
Whoa,
Yeah,
okay.
I think MVP will be Embiid. I think he's got it
For
wrapped
the
up.
series?
Oh,
Oh, I just meant for the
okay,
series. Sorry,
okay.
yeah.
Sorry.
I was a little confused for a
Yeah,
second.
yeah.
Yeah.
I'll go with my series
I
prediction.
agree with your MVP pick
Yeah.
though.
So I think with a healthy Embiid, I think the Celtics win in well. That we got to define healthy too, because I think healthy is like
We really don't know.
yeah, we don't know. I think
We don't know what grade it is.
with if Embiid plays starting game two, I think the Celtics will win in six. That was my prediction to
Hmm.
start even before like the LCL injury happened.
Hmm.
But if Embiid is not healthy at all, really for the whole series, and he misses game one and maybe game two, I have the Celtics winning in five. I think Philly could back up home court once
Hmm.
if Embiid's not healthy. But I think with not a healthy Embiid, Celtics in five. If there's a pretty healthy Embiid, I could see it in six. That's
Hmm.
more of a biased opinion.
Sure.
But I think a more realistic thing would be with a healthy Embiid Celtics in seven.
Yeah.
But that's the question is the only way to figure out who's going to win the series is Embiid going to be healthy, and that's going to be an
Right.
answer that
Yeah.
no one knows right now because
Yeah.
no news isn't really good news right
No.
now. So that's my predictions for the series. I think the MVP I think Jason Tatum will be the MVP for the series.
Mm.
He has to step up because Brown's been played super well against the Sixers his whole career.
Yeah. Right.
But Tatum really needs to win that matchup against whether it's Toby guarding him or Tucker when Toby's on the bench,
Hmm.
or whoever else is going to step up against him. Like Tatum needs to have 30 a game for the Celtics to win handily.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Question before I get mine. If
Mhm.
Embiid's let's say, I mean, I'm not going to say he's going to be 100%, but like
Right.
hypothetically in some universe where he was 100%, or like let's say we can get both answers. If he was like decently healthy and he suited up for game one,
Mhm.
how does that change your prediction? I guess you're still
Um,
picking Celtics.
Yeah, I'd still pick the Celtics, but I would say it would be in seven. I think it would
Okay.
split the first four,
Mm.
2-2, just
Yeah.
maybe
Mhm.
steal one at each place.
Sure. Yeah.
But it's gonna be 2-2 going into game five.
Hmm.
And I think the Celtics win game 5
Yeah.
at home, and
Yeah.
then the
Mhm.
Sixers could steal could win game 6 and protect home
Yep.
court.
Mhm.
But like that's also like Embiid is another reason why I think the Sixers have had a hard time getting past and over the hump is Embiid's durability and stamina.
Mhm.
And a long series for a big guy like Embiid who has been hurt a lot in his career
Right.
and just get really exhausted when he's the main guy who has to have the ball.
Yeah.
That game
Mhm.
6 it would be really tough for him to stay like super in through
Sure.
the whole time.
Yeah.
But if
Mhm.
Embiid was 100% the whole series, I would say Celtics in 7.
Okay. Gotcha. Yeah. So yeah, my prediction has definitely changed from a few days ago. I think Boston's going to take the first 2 games. Unfortunately, I see a possibility where like B-ball Paul plays really well. He doesn't have to put up a lot of points, but like Maxi pops off and they somehow steal a game. It's kind of tough for me to comprehend. But if there was a year for it to happen, this Sixers team has the best chance to do it.
Yeah.
Like I said, and like I said, they played pretty well without Embiid. But I think Boston goes up 2-0. I think Embiid has his like I think it's originally I thought it was going to go like the Raptors series from 2018 where it goes back and forth like you said each team steals a game and
Mhm.
then Sixers fight off home court and then ended in dramatic fashion.
Yeah.
But now I kind of feel more like Sixers Heat last year. Um, Celtics win the first 2 games. Sixers maybe if Embiid's like good to go. I mean he has played through torn meniscus in the playoffs before. We just again we don't know what this is at all really.
Mhm.
I could see the Sixers winning those 2 games, but then I think they run out of gas in game 5 because they had to exert all their energy to win at home. And then I think they lose in possibly 6. Now, if Embiid's really not at a good rate, I see them losing at 5. So
Mhm.
right now, I picked Celtics in 7 the other day. I'm going to go 6 right
Okay.
now. I don't feel good, but I think the Sixers can steal 2 games at some
Yeah.
point,
Yeah.
probably at home. So
You and I are kind of in the same boat then with like
yeah,
what our prediction is.
yeah,
So yeah, I think it'll be a interesting series. I hope Embiid is healthy because you don't want to like beat a depleted team.
yeah,
And you want like to show that like you're obviously the best team coming
right,
out of it.
yeah,
But well, people who are watching this now, or like with the result, we could sound like complete idiots and maybe be totally wrong.
yeah,
But
yeah.
from our expert analysis, that's what we have as our
Yeah,
predictions. Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
conclusive evidence there. I'm glad we came to a consensus on that. But yeah, I mean, I think that's all I had, Dalton. But anything you want to say to the people? I'm sure you got a lot of family, friends watching. I don't know.
Yeah, I got all my crew watching. If Adam Silver's watching this, we gotta adjust this playoff schedule or the regular season. This isn't good.
Yeah,
Seeing everybody get hurt or having like only one full day of rest in between games. You want the best basketball. We gotta get these players rested because load management stinks. No one likes to see that, but something has to be
yeah,
done with the schedule, in my opinion. But I could be, I also don't really have any say in what goes on. Or I'm playing in the NBA, but the schedule is not my favorite thing,
yeah.
in the playoffs especially. But to all my loyal Celtics fans out there, go Celtics or go F yourself.
Yeah, as far as the load management thing goes, it just doesn't account for fluke injuries either. I
Yeah.
mean, it's just the reality. I mean, Kawhi tears his meniscus, Embiid has that weird fall. I don't think Embiid really like necessarily load managed as much this year. He's played around 70 games. So, but shout out Ant Edwards. Everyone should be playing every game. Love that guy. Future Sixer maybe, but we'll see. But yeah, thank you all for watching. All Dalton's friends too. I'm sure Thomas and Jack are watching. I don't know if you guys made it to the end. It's pretty long, but appreciate all y'all. I really do. Thank you all who tuned in for this. It meant a lot, and it was a lot of fun talking some Celtics Sixers with you, Dalton. I'm glad we got to do this right before graduation too.
I know.
Feels like a fitting end to the year, and there's a game on graduation day, so we'll see how that
Yeah,
goes.
yeah.
But yeah, that's all I got.
Yeah, and one thing I want to say too about Philly Insider Sports is that they're great. I tune into a lot of their podcasts just for fun, whether it's to throw in some comments about the Celtics or about the Sixers and Eagles and just trash on them. But Hunter does an amazing job, so shout out to him. All the people who subscribe. If you aren't subscribed, keep subscribing. Stay updated because this stuff is good. He knows what he's talking about. All the other guys that are a part of it as well, they've been great. I know he's brought in a couple of like new guys too. Some guys who are like first time podders. This is my first time ever on a podcast. So
We gotta do this
yeah,
more often, man.
it's a lot of fun. He does it really well. He knows what he's talking about. So he's gonna be NFL Network one day or doing something really cool in his career. So if you want good sports talk, listen to Underdog because he does a great job. I just want to say thank you for having me on. It was
Oh,
a lot of fun.
thanks, man.
Yeah.
I appreciate the kind words coming from Wheaton basketball's own commentator, especially. So,
Yeah.
and yeah, I mean, hopefully you're going to be working in the sports industry someday as well. Excited for you too. I won't speak on your plans, but
Yeah,
you'll be doing something someday.
we'll see.
So
We'll see what
yeah,
happens. We'll
yeah,
see.
yeah.
Yeah.
But anyway, I think that's a good place to end. Thank you guys again for watching. We appreciate it. Dalton, again, thank you for hopping on. It was a pleasure. Thank you for your kind words too. Very
Yeah.
humbling. But yeah, hopefully you guys enjoyed this. If you made it to the end, drop a W Dalton in the chat or a Walton. I don't know. But yeah, thank you guys for watching, and we'll see you guys later. Trust the process.